David Chen stood in his corner office on the 42nd floor, looking down at the city below. The winter sun was setting early, painting the sky orange and pink. Tomorrow would be a new year, but tonight felt just like every other night for the past 5 years. Empty. His phone buzzed on the marble desk. Another business deal closed successfully. Another few $1,000,000 added to his already massive fortune. David picked up the phone and saw the notification. $3.2 billion. That was his net worth now. He should feel happy. He should feel proud. Instead, he felt nothing at all. The office was quiet. His employees had all gone home hours ago to prepare for New Year's Eve celebrations with their families. His assistant, Maria, had quit last week. She said she was tired of working for someone who never seemed to care about anything except money. Her words still hurt. "You have everything, Mr. Chen, but you act like you have nothing," she had said before walking out. David walked to his private bathroom and looked at himself in the mirror. At 38 years old, he was still young. His black hair was perfectly styled. His expensive suit fit him perfectly. His watch cost more than most people made in a year. But his eyes looked tired. They looked sad. He thought about calling someone to have dinner with tonight. But who? His parents had stopped talking to him 3 years ago after he refused to help save the family restaurant. They said he cared more about his business empire than his own family. His brother Tom lived across the country and never answered his calls anymore. His college friends had all disappeared when he became too busy with work to see them. David had built a wall around himself made of money and success. Now he was trapped inside it, and he could not find a way out. His stomach growled. He realized he had not eaten since breakfast. On New Year's Eve, he should be somewhere special. He should be celebrating. He picked up his phone and started calling restaurants. "Hello, this is David Chen. I need a table for one tonight." "I'm sorry, sir, we are completely booked," the hostess said politely. David tried another restaurant. Then another. Each time, the same answer. No tables available. It did not matter that he could buy the entire restaurant if he wanted to. Money could not create space where there was none. After the 8th restaurant turned him down, David put on his long black coat and left his office. The elevator carried him down to the parking garage where his silver car waited. The car was worth more than most houses, but tonight it felt like just another expensive thing that could not make him happy. He drove through the city streets slowly. Everywhere he looked, he saw people walking together. Couples holding hands. Families rushing to dinner reservations. Groups of friends laughing as they headed to parties. David felt like he was watching life happen through glass, unable to touch it or be part of it. The traffic was heavy because of the holiday. David found himself stopped at a red light for several minutes. He looked out his window and saw a small restaurant called Tony's Place. Through the large windows, he could see families sitting around tables covered with red checkered tablecloths. Children were drawing on paper placemats while their parents talked and smiled. Everyone looked warm and happy. David thought about going inside, but he knew they would probably be full too. Besides, eating alone at a family restaurant on New Year's Eve seemed too sad, even for him. The light turned green, and he drove on. He passed more restaurants, all glowing with warm light and full of people celebrating together. David kept driving until he reached the expensive part of town where he lived. Here, the restaurants were fancier, with names he could barely pronounce and prices that would shock most people. He tried 3 more restaurants in person. Each time, the host looked at him with sympathy but shook their head. "I'm sorry, Mr. Chen. Even our waiting list is full tonight." Standing outside the last restaurant, David felt something he had not felt in years. He felt small. All his money, all his success, all his power meant nothing tonight. He could not buy what these other people had. He could not buy a warm meal shared with people who cared about him. Snow started falling from the dark sky. The white flakes landed on his expensive coat and melted immediately. David watched other people hurrying past him, all heading somewhere warm and welcoming. He had nowhere to go except his empty apartment with its beautiful furniture and its silence. He started walking, not caring where he was going. His leather shoes, which cost $800, were not made for walking in snow. His feet got cold quickly, but he kept walking anyway. The physical discomfort felt better than the emptiness inside his chest. After walking for 20 minutes, David found himself in a part of the city he rarely visited. The buildings were older here, and the streets were not as clean. But there was something alive about this neighborhood that his wealthy area lacked. People were still out on the sidewalks despite the snow. He could hear music coming from open doors and laughter echoing between the buildings. David turned a corner and stopped. Across the street was a small diner with a simple sign that read, Mel's Diner. The windows were steamed up from the warm air inside, but he could still see through them. The place was not fancy at all. The chairs looked old, and the floor was simple tile. But it was full of people, and everyone inside seemed to be having a wonderful time. Through the window, David saw something that made his heart ache. At a table near the window sat a young man, maybe 30 years old, with dark hair and kind eyes. Across from him was a little girl with pigtails who looked about 8 years old. She was coloring on a paper placemat with broken crayons while the man watched her with the biggest smile David had ever seen. The man was wearing clothes that had clearly been washed many times. His jacket had a small tear in one sleeve. But he looked happier than any of the wealthy people David knew. The little girl showed him her drawing, and he clapped his hands like she had just created the most beautiful art in the world. David watched them for several minutes. The man helped the girl color inside the lines. She giggled when he made funny voices while reading the children's menu to her. When their food came, it was simple, just burgers and fries. But they said a small prayer before eating, holding hands across the table. The scene made David think about his own childhood. His parents had taken him and Tom to a diner just like this one every Sunday after church. His mother would let him order chocolate chip pancakes, and his father would steal bites while pretending David was not looking. Those had been some of the happiest moments of his life. When had he stopped remembering them? Standing in the snow, watching this father and daughter share their simple meal, David realized something that shocked him. These two people, who clearly did not have much money, were richer than he was. They had something he had spent years trying to buy but could never find. They had love. They had each other. They had joy in small things. The little girl looked up from her coloring and seemed to notice David standing outside in the snow. She pointed at him and said something to her father. The man looked toward the window, and his eyes met David's through the glass. Instead of looking away or seeming annoyed, the man smiled and gave a small wave. David felt his chest tighten. When was the last time a stranger had smiled at him just to be kind? When was the last time anyone had looked at him and seen more than just his money and power? This man in his worn clothes and old jacket was showing him more kindness in one moment than David had received from anyone in months. The little girl was still pointing at him and talking to her father. David could not hear what she was saying, but he could see the concern on both their faces. They were worried about him, a stranger standing alone in the snow on New Year's Eve. They cared about someone they did not even know. David felt tears starting to form in his eyes. He had not cried in years, not since the day his grandfather died when David was 25. But standing here, seeing what real happiness looked like, understanding how lonely and empty his life had become, the tears came anyway. He wiped his eyes quickly and looked back at the diner. The father was still watching him with concern. The little girl had stopped coloring and was looking at him too. David realized he had two choices. He could walk away, go back to his empty apartment, and spend New Year's Eve alone like he had for the past 5 years. Or he could try something different. His phone buzzed again. Another business notification. More money earned while he stood on a snowy sidewalk feeling sorry for himself. David looked at his phone, then looked back at the warm light coming from the diner windows. For the first time in years, David Chen made a choice that had nothing to do with money or business or success. He made a choice about what kind of person he wanted to be. Sam Martinez looked through the steamed window of Mel's diner and felt worried about the man standing outside in the snow. The stranger wore an expensive coat and looked like he had plenty of money, but there was something about his face that reminded Sam of how he felt on his worst days. Lost. Alone. Sad. "Daddy, why is that man standing outside?" Amy asked, pointing with her blue crayon. "He looks cold." Sam studied the stranger more carefully. The man's shoulders were hunched against the snow, and even though his clothes probably cost more than Sam made in 3 months, he looked like he needed help. Sam had learned about loneliness the hard way. After his wife Lisa died 2 years ago, he had spent many nights feeling just as lost as this stranger appeared to be. "I think he might need a friend," Sam told his daughter. "Stay here and keep coloring. I'll be right back." Amy nodded seriously. "Tell him he can share our fries. We have lots." Sam smiled at his daughter's big heart. Even though they had very little money, Amy always wanted to share what they had with others. It was one of the many ways she reminded him of Lisa every single day. Sam stood up and walked toward the door. Several other people in the diner were also watching the man outside, but nobody else seemed ready to do anything about it. Sam understood why. The stranger's expensive clothes made him look like he belonged in a different world. But Sam had learned that sadness looked the same on everyone, rich or poor. The cold air hit Sam's face as he stepped outside. He had left his jacket inside because he planned to make this quick. The stranger was still standing in the same spot, looking through the window at the families inside. "Hey there," Sam called out, his breath making white clouds in the cold air. "You look like you could use some coffee and a warm place to sit." The man turned toward Sam with surprise. His eyes were red like he had been crying, though he was trying to hide it. Sam could see that this person was probably around his own age, maybe a little older, with kind but tired eyes. "I'm sorry," the stranger said quietly. "I was just looking. I'll move along." "No need to apologize," Sam said, taking a step closer. "I'm Sam Martinez. That's my daughter Amy in there, and we've got more food than we can finish. Why don't you come inside where it's warm?" The stranger looked shocked. "You don't know me. I could be anyone." Sam shrugged. "Amy noticed you standing out here and got worried. She's 8 years old and believes in being kind to everyone. I've learned a lot from watching her." The man was quiet for a moment, snow collecting on his dark hair. "I tried to get dinner reservations tonight, but everywhere is full. I guess I should have planned better." "Well, Mel's isn't fancy, but the food is good and it's warm," Sam said. "Plus, my daughter would be very happy if you joined us. She loves meeting new people." Sam could see the stranger fighting with himself about whether to accept the invitation. Finally, the man nodded slowly. "My name is David. David Chen. And I would like that very much." Sam smiled and led David toward the diner entrance. "Great. Amy will be excited." When they walked inside, the warm air felt wonderful after the cold street. The diner smelled like coffee and home cooking. Amy looked up from her coloring with bright eyes. "You came inside," she said happily to David. "I'm Amy. What's your name?" "I'm David," he answered, his voice softer than it had been outside. "Thank you for letting me join you." "Sit here next to me," Amy said, patting the seat beside her. "I want to show you my drawing." David looked at Sam, who nodded encouragingly. David sat down carefully, like he was not used to being around children. Amy immediately pushed her paper toward him. "It's fireworks," she explained proudly. "For New Year's Eve. See all the colors. David studied the drawing seriously. "This is beautiful, Amy. You're a very good artist." Amy beamed. "Daddy says I get that from my mama. She used to paint pictures before she went to heaven." David's eyes met Sam's across the table. Sam gave a small nod to let David know it was okay that Amy had mentioned Lisa. "Your mama must have been very talented," David said gently to Amy. "She was the best," Amy agreed. "Daddy, can David have some of our French fries? He looks hungry." Sam laughed. "Of course he can. David, what would you like to eat? The burgers here are really good." David looked at the simple menu. Everything was much cheaper than the restaurants he usually went to. "A burger sounds perfect. And maybe some coffee?" Sam called the waitress over. Her name was Betty, and she had been working at Mel's for 15 years. She took David's order with a friendly smile, not seeming to notice or care about his expensive clothes. "So what do you do for work, David?" Sam asked after Betty walked away. David hesitated. He was used to people treating him differently when they learned how much money he had. "I work in business. Import and export mostly. What about you?" "I work at the Johnson manufacturing plant during the day," Sam said. "Making car parts. At night I take classes at the community college. I'm studying to become an engineer." Amy looked up from her coloring. "Daddy is super smart. His teacher says he's the best student in his math class." Sam's cheeks turned a little red. Amy likes to brag about her old dad. "You're not old," Amy said seriously. "You're perfect age." David found himself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in months. "How long have you been taking classes?" "About a year now," Sam said. "It's hard work with my day job and taking care of Amy, but I want to give her a better life. Lisa always said I was good with numbers and solving problems. I figured I should listen to her advice." David's burger arrived, and it looked simple but delicious. As they ate, Amy kept talking to David like they were old friends. She told him about her school, her favorite books, and her pet goldfish named Bubbles. "Bubbles can do tricks," Amy said proudly. "He can swim through a little hoop that Daddy made for him." "That sounds amazing," David said. "I've never had a pet." Amy's eyes got wide. "Never? Not even when you were little like me?" "My parents thought pets were too much work," David explained. "That's sad," Amy said with the honesty that only children have. "Pets make everything better. Maybe you could get a goldfish like Bubbles." Sam watched David carefully during this conversation. He could tell that this man was not used to talking about simple, happy things. There was something about David that seemed lonely and hungry for connection, even though he clearly had money and probably everything else that people thought mattered. "Amy, why don't you show David your other drawings while we finish eating?" Sam suggested. Amy pulled out a small notebook full of her artwork. Each page showed her world through 8-year-old eyes. There were pictures of her and Sam, drawings of their small apartment, and many pictures of a woman with long dark hair who Sam knew was Lisa. "This is my mama," Amy said, showing David a drawing of the three of them holding hands. "She used to make the best pancakes in the world." David studied the drawing carefully. "She looks very beautiful and kind." "She was," Sam said quietly. "Amy was only 6 when Lisa got sick. But she remembers all the good times." "I remember her songs," Amy added. "She used to sing to me every night before bed. Now Daddy sings, but he's not as good." "Hey now," Sam said with mock hurt in his voice. "My singing isn't that bad." Amy giggled. "It's pretty bad, Daddy. But I love it anyway." David watched this playful exchange between father and daughter with something like wonder in his eyes. Sam realized that David probably had not seen much of this kind of easy, loving relationship in his life. "Do you have family, David?" Sam asked gently. David's face became more serious. I have parents and a brother, but we don't talk much anymore. Work keeps me very busy. Amy looked sad. That's not good. Family is the most important thing. Right, Daddy? Right, sweetheart, Sam agreed. Though sometimes family isn't just the people you're related to. Sometimes it's the people who care about you. David nodded slowly. I'm starting to understand that. As they continued eating and talking, Sam learned more about David. He could tell that David was successful in business, though David never said exactly what kind of work he did. David asked many questions about Sam's engineering classes and seemed genuinely interested in his studies. The math is challenging, Sam admitted. But I enjoy solving problems. Each equation is like a puzzle that needs to be figured out. I always liked math too, David said. I haven't thought about it in years, but I used to enjoy the logic of it all. Amy had finished eating and was back to coloring. She made a new picture while the two men talked, this one showing 3 people sitting at a table together. That's us, she announced when she finished. David, you're the one in the middle with the big smile. David looked at the drawing and his eyes got a little wet again. Thank you, Amy. This is the nicest gift anyone has given me in a very long time. Sam felt his heart hurt a little for this man who seemed to have so much but felt so grateful for a child's simple drawing. He decided to take a chance and ask something more personal. David, do you mind me asking if you're alone tonight because you wanted to be, or because you didn't have anywhere else to go? David was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I spent so many years focused on work that I forgot how to have relationships with people. Tonight I realized that all my success doesn't mean much if I have no one to share it with. Sam nodded understanding. After Lisa died, I felt like that for a while. Like success didn't matter if she wasn't there to celebrate it with me. But Amy helped me learn that sharing good things with anyone who cares makes them better. Your daughter is very wise, David said, watching Amy add more colors to her picture. She gets that from her mama too, Sam said with a smile. Betty came over to refill their coffee cups. You folks want any dessert? We've got apple pie that's still warm. Amy's eyes lit up. Can we, Daddy? Please. Sam calculated quickly in his head. The pie would cost extra money they didn't really have, but it was New Year's Eve. Sure, sweetheart. We're celebrating. What are we celebrating? Amy asked. Sam looked at David, then back at his daughter. New friends, he said simply. David's face broke into the biggest, most genuine smile Sam had seen from him all evening. I'd like that very much. As Betty brought over 3 pieces of warm apple pie with vanilla ice cream, Sam felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. The feeling of family growing bigger, even if just for one night. After they finished their apple pie, Amy started getting sleepy. She leaned against Sam's arm and yawned. The diner was getting busier as more people came in to warm up before the midnight fireworks show in the park across the street. What time is it, Daddy? Amy asked, rubbing her eyes. Sam checked his watch. Almost 11:30. We should head over to the park soon if we want to see the fireworks. David looked confused. There are fireworks here. Every New Year's Eve, Sam explained. The city puts on a small show in Central Park. It's not as big as the ones you see on TV, but Amy loves it. We've been coming here together since she was 6. Amy perked up a little. David, do you want to come watch with us? They're really pretty. David hesitated. He felt like he was intruding on their family tradition, but the thought of going back to his empty apartment made his chest feel tight again. I don't want to get in the way of your special time together, David said carefully. Sam shook his head. You're not in the way. Besides, fireworks are always better when more people watch them together. Amy nodded seriously. Mama used to say that happiness grows bigger when you share it with other people. David felt his throat get tight. This little girl had more wisdom than most adults he knew. "If you're sure I wouldn't be bothering you, I would love to watch the fireworks." Amy clapped her hands together happily. "Yes. This is going to be the best New Year's Eve ever." Sam paid their bill, though David tried to offer to pay for everyone. Sam politely refused, saying it was his treat for the new friendship. David respected this, understanding that Sam had his pride and didn't want charity. They bundled up in their coats and walked outside into the snowy night. The park was just across the street, and already dozens of families were gathering there with blankets and hot chocolate in thermoses. Children were running around in the snow while their parents talked and laughed together. Amy took David's hand without asking, like it was the most natural thing in the world. David looked down at her small mittened hand in his and felt something warm spread through his chest. When was the last time someone had held his hand just to be close to him? They found a spot near a big oak tree where they could see the area where the fireworks would launch. Sam spread out an old blanket he had brought from his car, and the three of them sat down together. "Are you cold, David?" Amy asked, noticing that he didn't have gloves. "I'm okay," David said, though his hands were getting numb. Amy took off one of her mittens and tried to give it to him. "Here, you can use mine. They're small but maybe they'll help a little." David's eyes filled with tears again. This child was willing to give up her own warmth for him, a stranger she had just met. "Thank you, Amy, but I want you to keep your mittens." "I'll be fine." Sam noticed David shivering and made a decision. "Amy, come sit between David and me. We can all share body heat that way." The three of them huddled closer together on the blanket. David found himself with Amy leaning against his left side and Sam's solid presence on her other side. For the first time in years, David felt truly warm. "Sam," David said quietly while Amy was distracted by some other children playing nearby, "can I ask you something personal?" "Sure," Sam replied. "How do you do it? How do you stay so positive and kind when you've lost so much?" Sam was quiet for a moment, watching his daughter laugh with some other kids. "It wasn't easy at first. When Lisa died, I was angry at the world for a long time. I felt like life had been unfair to us. We were good people who worked hard and loved each other, and she still got taken away." David nodded, listening carefully. "But Amy was grieving too, and she needed me to be strong," Sam continued. "I realized that I could either become bitter about what we lost, or I could focus on what we still had. We still had each other. We still had love. We still had hope for good things in the future." "That must have taken incredible strength," David said. "Some days it did," Sam admitted. "But Amy helped me more than she knew." Kids have a way of finding joy in small things. Watching her discover that she could still be happy helped me learn how to be happy again too. Amy came running back to them, her cheeks red from the cold and exercise. "Daddy, I made a snow angel with those kids over there. Do you want to see?" "Of course I do," Sam said, standing up. David watched Sam admire Amy's snow angel like it was a masterpiece. He praised her creativity and asked her to show him how she made the wings so perfect. Amy beamed under her father's attention. When they came back to the blanket, Amy settled between them again. "David, do you have a job you like?" David thought about this question. "I used to think I loved my work. I'm good at making money and building companies. But lately, I'm not sure if that's enough anymore." "What would make you happy?" Amy asked with the direct curiosity of a child. David looked at her serious little face. "I think what would make me happy is having people in my life who care about me, like you have with your daddy." Amy nodded like this made perfect sense. "You could have that. You just have to be nice to people and care about them back." Sam smiled. Amy's right. Relationships are like plants. You have to water them and give them attention if you want them to grow. "I think I forgot how to do that," David admitted. "I spent so many years focused on business that I pushed everyone away." "It's never too late to learn," Sam said kindly. Look at me. I had to learn how to be a single parent, how to go back to school, how to build a new life. We can all change if we really want to. A voice came over a loudspeaker announcing that the fireworks would begin in 5 minutes. The crowd in the park started counting down from 60 seconds. Daddy, lift me up so I can see better. Amy requested. Sam picked up his daughter and put her on his shoulders. David stood next to them, feeling like part of their little family circle. The first firework shot into the sky and exploded in a shower of gold sparks. Amy cheered and clapped her hands. More fireworks followed, filling the dark sky with colors and light. Red, blue, green, purple, silver, each explosion brought gasps of wonder from the crowd. David found himself looking at Amy's face as much as he looked at the fireworks. Her eyes were wide with amazement, and she pointed at each new burst of color like it was the most magical thing she had ever seen. Her joy was infectious. Look at that one, David. Amy called down to him, pointing at a particularly bright firework. It looks like a flower. It's beautiful, David agreed, and he meant it. Not just the firework, but this whole experience of watching it with people who cared about sharing the moment with him. When the finale began, dozens of fireworks went off at once, lighting up the entire sky. The crowd cheered and people hugged each other as midnight officially arrived. Happy New Year! Amy shouted from her perch on Sam's shoulders. Happy New Year, sweetheart, Sam replied, kissing the top of her head. David felt awkward for a moment, not sure if he should join in their family moment. But Amy reached down and grabbed his hand. Happy New Year, David, she said with a huge smile. Happy New Year, Amy, David said back, his voice thick with emotion. Sam shifted Amy to one arm and reached out to shake David's hand. Happy New Year, my friend. As the crowd began to disperse, Amy fell asleep against her father's shoulder. The excitement of the evening and staying up past her bedtime had finally caught up with her. I should get her home, Sam said quietly. She's got school next week. David felt a familiar loneliness creeping back as he realized their evening together was ending. But this time, instead of just accepting it, he decided to be brave. Sam, he said as they walked back toward the diner parking lot, I want you to know that tonight meant more to me than you can imagine. You and Amy gave me something I didn't even know I was missing. Sam adjusted his sleeping daughter and looked at David seriously. You gave us something too. Amy hasn't laughed that much since before Lisa died. And I haven't had a real adult conversation in months. Sometimes we need each other more than we realize. They reached Sam's old car, which was clearly many years old but clean and well-maintained. Sam carefully put Amy in her car seat, and she barely stirred. David, Sam said, closing the car doors softly, I know we just met tonight, but I hope we can stay in touch. Amy would love to see you again. David felt his heart race with hope. I would like that very much. Actually, I have an idea. You mentioned you're studying engineering at the community college. Yeah, it's challenging but I love it, Sam said. I know some people in that field, David said carefully. If you ever want someone to study with or if you have questions about the coursework, I'd be happy to help. I was pretty good at math and science back in my college days. Sam looked surprised. You would do that? I'd be honored to do that, David said honestly. You're working so hard to build a better life for Amy. That takes courage and dedication that I really admire. Sam smiled and pulled out his phone. Let me give you my number. And David? Thank you for tonight. You turned what could have been just another New Year's Eve into something really special. 6 months later, David stood in the front row of the community college auditorium, clapping as loudly as he could. On stage, Sam Martinez walked across to receive his certificate for completing the engineering program with the highest grades in his class. Amy, now 9 years old and missing her 2 front teeth, stood on her chair next to David so she could see better. That's my daddy, she shouted proudly, waving a sign she had made that said, "Congratulations, Dad." David had been helping Sam study twice a week since that New Year's Eve night. What started as tutoring sessions had become something much more valuable. David had found the family he never knew he wanted, and Sam had found a friend who genuinely cared about his dreams. David's expensive apartment now had Amy's latest drawings hanging on the refrigerator next to professional business awards. His calendar included tea parties with stuffed animals and Saturday morning pancake breakfasts. He had learned to braid hair for school picture day and how to read bedtime stories with all the right voices. More importantly, David had called his parents and his brother Tom. The conversations were difficult at first, but slowly they were rebuilding the relationships he had damaged with years of putting work before family. He was learning that saying sorry was just the first step. The real work was in changing how he lived every day. As Sam walked off the stage with his certificate, he spotted David and Amy in the crowd. His smile got even bigger. After the ceremony, the three of them went out for ice cream to celebrate. "So what's next?" David asked Sam as they sat in the familiar booth at their favorite diner. "I got that job offer from Henderson Engineering," Sam said excitedly. "Good pay, benefits, and they'll help me get my full engineering degree while I work." Amy bounced in her seat. "And David, you can still come have dinner with us every Sunday, right?" "I wouldn't miss it for the world," David assured her. He meant it. He had learned that the richest life was not measured by bank accounts or business deals. It was measured by moments like this one, surrounded by people who loved him not for what he could give them, but for who he was choosing to become. That night, as David tucked Amy into bed in the guest room of his apartment where she often slept on weekends, she handed him a new drawing. It showed three people holding hands under a sky full of fireworks. At the bottom, in her careful 8-year-old handwriting, she had written, "My family." David hung the picture on his bedroom wall where he could see it every morning when he woke up. It reminded him daily that the best investment he had ever made was not in stocks or real estate, but in the simple act of caring about other people. The lonely billionaire who had stood in the snow on New Year's Eve was gone. In his place was someone who had learned that true wealth came from love, friendship, and the courage to let other people into your heart. Part 3, 2000 words ka leko or interesting huna chia or third-person style ma lekni ho or simple basic English ka. Don't use any violated word. So please avoid any violated content. Don't use ...